Have you ever seen a house where the lights never turn on? A house that no one ever enters. But sometimes, from behind the curtains, you can hear a faint whisper, "Don't knock." We thought it was just another Halloween story, until one of us didn't come back. Soft creak of a door, fade in title. The house where they never opened the door. Every year on Halloween night, Woodhaven Street turned into a carnival of laughter and lights. Kids ran from door to door shouting, "Trick or treat." Even the grumpiest neighbors left bowls of candy by their doors. Everyone, except for house number 46. That house was always dark, no lights, no decorations. The front door never opened. And every Halloween, someone whispered that once. Someone knocked and never came back. 4 friends, Meg, Tom, Logan, and Emma, decided that this year they'd finally check the legend. Tom brought a flashlight. Logan grabbed his phone to record it all, and Meg said the words that would haunt them later. If no one lives there, what's there to be afraid of? They walked down the cheerful street filled with pumpkins and laughter until they reached it. House number 46 stood in the shadows, as if Halloween itself refused to touch it. The fence was rotting, the paint peeling, the yard dead and overgrown, the windows covered from the inside. Logan turned on his camera. "Okay, 3, 2, 1, we're knocking." Meg knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. Silence. They started to walk away when the door slowly creaked open by itself. The air smelled of dampness and something sweet, too sweet, like melted caramel. Everything was covered in dust, but on the floor, fresh footprints. Someone had been here recently. On the table sat a bowl of candy, gold-wrapped caramels. Next to it, a note. "Take only one." Tom laughed and grabbed a handful. "Thanks, ghost." Meg suddenly felt a chill. The air seemed thicker. The flashlight started flickering. Footsteps echoed from the stairs, slow, heavy. They froze. At the top of the staircase stood a tall figure, wearing a long black mask, a stretched face, featureless, without eyes. "It's probably just someone pranking us," Emma whispered. The figure began to move down the stairs. Step, step, step. Tom shone the flashlight, and the figure was gone. Only a black handprint remained on the wall, as if someone had been standing there, watching them. They bolted out of the house, laughing nervously. But when Logan checked the footage, the recording had stopped right when the door opened. The rest was blank. Tom joked that his phone glitched out. But that night, he got sick, fever, hallucinations. And the next morning, they found him dead on his nightstand, a single golden candy. A week later, house number 46 was quiet again, dark, still. No one believed Meg and Emma's story. People said it was grief, hysteria, or a cruel coincidence. But the next Halloween, a new bowl of candy appeared on that same doorstep. And this time, the note was written in a different handwriting. "Take only one. And don't open the door." Every Halloween, people put on masks to become someone else. But once, I met a man who couldn't take his off. In 2019, I was a college student in a small town in Pennsylvania. Every Halloween, the dorms would throw a massive costume party. Music, lights, contests, the whole deal. I was never big on dressing up, but my roommate Jake insisted that I come along. He said he'd found some unique costume at a flea market. When I asked what it was, he just smiled and said, "You'll see." No one's ever seen anything like it. Around 8 p.m., I heard Jake rustling around in his room. When he came out, I froze. He was wearing a long black cloak and an old mask, something that looked theatrical but made of dried skin. The eye holes were dark, empty. I tried to joke. Isn't that a bit much? He slowly turned his head toward me and whispered, "It fits perfectly." His voice sounded muffled, like it came from deep under the mask. I thought he was just acting in character. At the party, everyone was talking about Jake's costume. They thought it was makeup or some cool special effect. But when one guy tried to touch the mask, Jake grabbed his wrist so hard the guy screamed, said it felt like his skin was burning. "Dude, chill," someone shouted. But Jake didn't say a word. He just tilted his head slightly, then walked out of the room. The next morning, Jake was gone. I figured he'd crashed at someone else's dorm, but by evening, still no sign of him. His phone was off. A few days later, I went to that flea market he mentioned. I found the same stall, a small, dusty tent full of old junk. When I asked the elderly woman there about the mask, she looked frightened. "The one made of dried skin?" she whispered. "You bought one of those?" "My friend did. He's missing now." Her face went pale. "It's not meant for the living," she said. "Once it chooses someone, it won't come off." A week passed. I tried to convince myself Jake had just skipped town. But on the next Halloween, almost to the minute, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow, heavy knocks. I opened it, and there he was, the same cloak, the same mask. Only now, the mask looked alive. It was pulsating, as if something underneath it was breathing. I backed away. "Jake," I whispered. He tilted his head again. "It doesn't fit you," he said. "It shows me." I ran for the door, but he didn't move. He just stood there and whispered, "Now, I have to find the next one." When I blinked, he was gone. I dropped out of college a week later. Months after that, I found an online article about a string of missing students, all gone on Halloween night. Each one had a photo posted before they vanished. In every picture, behind them stood someone wearing the same mask. Every year, a new face, a new victim. Now, every October, I get a letter with no return address. Inside is a photo of me, and behind me, that same figure in black. On the back, there are only 3 words: "She's looking for you." In our small town, every Halloween night, people place glowing pumpkins on their porches, a cheerful symbol of the holiday. But nobody ever talks about the fact that someone comes to collect them. And if he takes yours, you'll never see the morning. I grew up in a quiet place called Millfield, population just under 1,000. Every Halloween, the whole town came alive. Kids in costumes, laughter, the smell of bonfires, and the warm orange glow of carved pumpkins lining every porch. There was only one rule everyone followed: put your pumpkin outside before midnight for good luck. But my grandmother always added something else. Never put it out after midnight, or he'll come for it. I always thought that was just an old superstition. Years passed. When I turned 20, I came home from college for the weekend. My parents were away visiting friends, so I had the house to myself. Feeling nostalgic, I decided to carve a pumpkin, just like when I was a kid. But I got distracted scrolling through my phone, and by the time I finished, it was 12:17 a.m. I laughed at myself, walked outside, and placed the pumpkin on the porch. "Guess I just broke Grandma's rule," I muttered. Around 1 in the morning, I heard something outside, a dragging sound like something heavy being pulled along the asphalt. Then a dull thud, as if something had been dropped on a porch. Curious, I looked out the window and froze. Someone was walking down the street, tall, thin, wearing a long, filthy cloak with a hood that covered their face. In one hand, they dragged a large sack behind them. They stopped at every house and took the pumpkins, one by one. When they reached my yard, I couldn't breathe. They picked up my pumpkin and stopped. Then, slowly, the hooded figure turned its head toward my window. Even though the street was dark, I could swear there was nothing under that hood, just blackness. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. A few seconds later, there was a knock at my door. Once, pause, then twice more. 3 knocks total, slow, rhythmic. I didn't move. I just stood there, frozen, until silence filled the house again. When I finally stepped outside in the morning, my pumpkin was gone. So were all the others on the street. The neighbors said they'd found strange drag marks across their lawns, like someone had pulled a bag through the dirt. Some swore they heard whispering in the night. Later that day, I told my grandmother what I'd seen. Her face went pale. "He's back," she whispered. "I thought he'd disappeared with the last ones." "The last ones?" I asked. She looked at me with trembling lips. "Those who put their pumpkins out after midnight." A year passed. I moved to another city, trying to forget that Halloween. But every October, I started having the same dream, the sound of something being dragged, and then 3 knocks at my door. Last night, I woke up to the sound again. Only this time, it wasn't a dream. Outside my window stood a pumpkin, rotten, blackened, its carved eyes sunken and moldy. I recognized it instantly. It was mine, the same one from last year. Inside, a candle was burning, flickering weakly. When I leaned closer, I heard a whisper from within. "You shouldn't have looked." The flame went out. Something moved inside the pumpkin. Then, 3 knocks, this time from inside it. I ran into the house, slammed the door, and locked it. But the knocking didn't stop. Now it was coming from everywhere. The windows, the walls, even the floor beneath me. I flicked on the lights and froze. There were symbols carved into the walls, identical to the ones on my pumpkin, and muddy footprints leading straight to my bed. Something was under it. A large, wet burlap sack. Hands shaking, I tore it open and screamed. Inside were dozens of rotting pumpkins. Each one had a human face carved into it. Mouths open in silent screams, eyes wide with terror. And then, I saw movement in the mirror. A tall figure in a hood was standing right behind me. "You carved it after midnight," it whispered. "Now you're mine." The next morning, the neighbors found my door wide open. The lights were still on. No one was home. But on the porch sat a brand new pumpkin, carved perfectly with my face.